Good morning and welcome to the Red and Ed Show. My name is Jay Edgar and I'm joined to my right by my wonderful co-host as always, Elaine. How are we doing today?
Great, how are you?
How was your trip?
Very long. It was really pretty though. It was a really nice drive.
Can you tell the audience where you've gone to and anything about that, or are we on hush-hush mode still?
I am temporarily part-time relocating, I guess, to South Carolina for the duration of the election season.
Ooh,
So I'll be going back and forth between South Carolina and Indianapolis.
That sounds like fun. I hear it's quite warm down there here, but I hear you got some good news as well.
I do.
Yeah, you're getting your pool pass tomorrow, right?
Oh yeah, I get my pool pass tomorrow. So I get to go swimming to escape the heat. So that'll be nice.
Well, I'm sure it'll be a great time. I was just down in that corner of the country not that long ago either, too. So I even got to live stream from down there while I was down there myself. It's you are correct. It is quite warm once you get past that Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we have got a bunch of stuff to get to today. I mean, we filled the list, that's for sure. We are going to definitely get the better part of 2 hours going on here. We have got, the Supreme Court has been busy as hell over the last few weeks, and they didn't slow down this week, so we'll talk a bit about what they did this week. We've got some things going on with 2020. There's a little bit going on with ICE, and Kanye West has thrown his hat into the ring. We talked a bit about that last week, but he's actually serious. Like, he's actually going to do something about this, so we'll talk a bit about what's going on there.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Some of what the DNC is doing to try and do what the LNC did this past year, so we'll talk a bit about what's going on there. And Trump has pardoned Roger Stone, rather. He's commuted the sentence of Roger Stone, but most people on the interstate have no idea what the difference is between that, so we'll talk a bit about what's going on there. The Goya CEO came up and praised the president, leading millions of Goya fans to suddenly burn their products, so we'll talk just a bit about what's going on there. Lady Antebellum has changed their names, and the McCloskeys are once again back in the news, so we'll talk a bit about that. Over on the more domestic side here, we'll talk a bit about what's going on with schools reopening, including what's going on with colleges coming up in the fall. And we'll close it out with some government overreach of the week. We've got a couple stories there, and I've got some surprise stupidity for you. But before we get started on any of this here, make sure everybody goes over and checks us out over on the Freedom Scoop Media Group. We are currently streaming live to YouTube, DLive, Twitch, Facebook, and Periscope. But if you're not on one of those and you can't catch us live, or you're just popping in to say hi, go ahead and check us out over on the Freedom Scoop Media Group. You can check out great creators like the Freckles and Brit Show, the Generational Gap, Stephen Ignoramus, the R-Rated Conservative, and Wyatt Birkenhoff. You can go check all that out over there, and you can go check out our swag as well. So go and check that out. So, yeah, I think we probably better get started at this point. Actually, Before we do that, let's go check out the live chat here, see who's coming in and hang out with us. Doesn't look like anybody's in. Well, that was easy.
That was quick.
All right. Well, I think we're going to start out talking about the Supreme Court. So, this week has been busy. Of course, we first saw a bit of an access point with the ACA, so we'll see what's coming on with the ACA out of this. Where do you feel on the ACA?
I mean, it's the ACA. Like, I'm a libertarian. I think everybody knows how I feel about the ACA.
Well, you're still an individual.
This is true.
Well, according to 6 Action News, the Supreme Court has ruled 7-2 against Trump on... This is not the article that I wanted. Where is... Oh, I missed one. There it is. Supreme Court rules in favor of Little Sisters of the Poor in Obamacare contraception case. Over at Fox News, the Supreme Court on Wednesday ruled that the Trump administration acted within its authority when it expanded exemptions for the Affordable Care Act's requirement for employers to provide insurance coverage that includes contraception. In a victory for Little Sisters of the Poor, the Catholic group that has been the center of national debate over the mandate, the court ruled 7-2 in favor of the Trump administration and the Catholic charity case, or Catholic charity rather, that cares for the elderly in two related disputes against Pennsylvania, which sued over the validity of a rule from the Trump administration that allowed religiously affiliated groups and some for-profit companies to opt out of providing contraception coverage to the employees. And this is big because, I mean, this is what, the third time the Little Sisters of the Poor have been up at the top of this particular issue?
I think so.
Because they came in, first it was Hobby Lobby that came in, and then Little Sisters of the Poor came out. And once, I mean, I'm not Catholic, and I don't really understand how the Catholic religious system works, but from, what I understand, it is against their religion entirely to use birth control at all. So for the government to come down and say, you better provide this, that's just all kinds of conflict of interest.
I guess we'll see. They could always take it back to the Supreme Court for different reasons. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's completely off the table.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not 100% sure how this got up to the Supreme Court. I know that this has been ruled in their favor before, especially even under the Obama administration, this got ruled into their favor that they were exempt from all this, but they wound up having to go back. I'm pretty positive from looking at just some of the outside links of this, somebody actually went to work for them and then sued to get contraceptive care added to their plan because of the fact that it wasn't offered through there. Do you know anything about this at all, or?
Not really. I do know that there's another case that's going up to the Supreme Court this fall, and it's a bigger challenge to Obamacare in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I think its goal is to invalidate the whole ACA Act, or sorry, ACA. I shouldn't say Act because that's redundant.
Here's hoping.
But that one's coming up, I think in October. So we'll just have to see how that goes.
Oh, goody! Another October surprise.
So this ruling may not matter if they invalidate the entire Affordable Care Act. We'll just have to see.
I mean, I still, to this day, I can't understand why it got this far. Why the Affordable Care Act made it to the point where it's this far. I mean, it's clearly unconstitutional.
It's unconstitutional, but they keep ruling it as a tax issue instead of a healthcare issue. So that's why I say I don't think it's over, but they need to challenge it on different grounds in order to get a different outcome.
Because I know that part of the reason for the challenge is the fact that they're coming up to the Supreme Court based on the fact that the individual mandate has gone away by executive order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you don't even have to check the box on your tax return anymore. They're not legally allowed to reject your tax return if you don't answer whether or not you had insurance.
Which is probably pretty good because I actually waived it this year because I'm young and fairly healthy, and pretty much given the fact of what our insurance coverage was based on what my wage was, I'm wasting a third of my yearly earnings on insurance that I can't use.
That's insane.
Just based on what the deductible is. And that has been the worst part of this too, with the ACA has been the deductible that came out of everything.
Yeah, I worked at an insurance company in the early 2000s, around like 2010. So about a decade ago, before we had Obamacare. Mm-hmm. And deductibles were pretty affordable. I mean, I think individuals, it was like $3,500 or $3,000. It just depended. Mm-hmm. And then family deductibles were between $5,000 and $6,000 for the year.
I can remember what I still had.
When you have a family of four, that's not bad at all. But now it's $6,000 minimum for an individual.
I can remember having a $50 deductible.
Oh, I mean, like for the whole year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know. That was back in probably '02. Yeah, when I first got on insurance. '02, '03. It was like a $50 deductible. I think it was
Hmm.
150 actually, but still. I mean, that was something you could easily pay out of one paycheck. And
The
now you're taking
deductible or the
out
premium?
the deductible.
Oh, okay.
And now you're taking out a loan just to pay your freaking deductible. So,
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous.
but I want to go back onto this story here, talking about the mandate in the contraception. My first question, and this goes because this takes time to get up to the Supreme Court. It's not just like somebody goes and files a suit and says, "Okay, but I'm just going to take it right to the Supreme Court." No, there's steps to do
Right.
this. So this has been going on for a little while here. For the most part, up until the coronavirus hit, there were 7 million
Hmm.
unfilled jobs. So you had your pick of where you could go and work. You didn't
Right.
necessarily have to go and work for a charity or a not for profit and try and get them to change their coverage to go and fit you. I mean, is this Jack Phillips all over again, the cake baker thing all over again, where people are specifically going to these businesses in order to try and force their will onto religious people?
Right.
That's been something that's been just bothering my mind ever since the story first came out the first time. And I do understand, I got some respect out there for the fact that, for such a long time, up until pretty much the 2016 election, there were a lot of people that had to stay at the job that they were at no matter what the job was because there was no other job out there. But that did change up until like earlier this year. That was not the case.
Hmm.
People were begging for work, and that was part of what insurance was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a nice little incentive to pull people when they couldn't afford to pay people.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I don't know.
We've
Well,
not heard the end of it. I don't think it'll happen again.
you think so?
Absolutely.
Well, here's hoping that we'll get something good come out of October anyway. But that
Yeah,
would be,
don't quote me on October. It just said this, I think it just said this fall.
well, that would be quite the October surprise, and that would be if Biden could actually string himself together a sentence. One of the things they'd probably run on to try and, well, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to save all you people because I'm going to make the ACA happen again.
He's insane.
He is. The other one that we had coming up here, and the actual third case, or fourth case was it? Let me look at my notes here. The fourth case, rather, we'll actually be talking about on the end of the show because that's going to be one of our government overreaches of the week here. But in this case here, the Supreme Court also ruled 7-2 against Trump on New York tax return subpoena. But Congress can't get financial records for now. I read now from AB6 Action News because now I'm supposed to be reading this one. Kind of screwed that up there just a little bit. In Washington, rejecting President Trump's complaints that he's being harassed, the Supreme Court ruled Thursday in favor of a New York prosecutor's demands for the billionaire president's tax return. But in good political news for Trump, his taxes and other financial records almost certainly will be kept out of the public eye at least until after the November election. So there are a couple moving parts that go along with this, and this first paragraph here that they read out here with the headline is not entirely accurate. The Supreme Court voted instead of in favor one way or the other. They actually voted to remand this back to a lower court. I don't know if you caught that or not in any of this.
I think I missed that part. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
So at this point, the decision is on the Supreme Court of New York, I believe. The state Supreme Court is going to be the one that's making the decision on this. Or the Circuit Court in New York. I'm not sure which one it is, but I know it's remanded back to a lower court.
If it's the circuit court, he will not win.
No.
I don't think that that's going to happen.
So what have you seen on this so far?
I mean, I feel like they've been going back and forth about this for his entire first term. If it goes, like I said, if it goes back to New York, if it goes back to the circuit court, I don't think he'll win.
I don't think so, because they've got a grudge against this guy.
They do.
Like
Yeah,
a big
absolutely.
one. Even more than some other. But I don't even. The thing that's I've been trying to figure out, and it does seem like there is some criminality that goes with this. I know that they're trying to determine whether or not criminal activity was used when Trump hired, or when he paid off his hush money for Stormy Daniels and another woman.
Breaking news from the Supreme Court.
And I've got
about the
CNN
potential
autoplay
impact
going on here from the next article coming up here. So I know that's a big part of what's started this all out is the fact that, yeah, they're trying to determine the legality of what happened in the Stormy Daniels case. So if there's an actual criminal case up there and an indictment that goes with it, then I could see them getting a search warrant. But the first thing that I thought, of course, because Congress can't get their hands on this from where they're sitting right now, is that how long before this is leaked? Now, of course, it's obviously illegal to leak grand jury evidence here, but how long do you think this goes before it's leaked? Before this is sitting on Rachel Maddow's desk?
A month,
A month?
maybe, maybe, maybe a month. But then again, like I said, we've been going through this for the last 4 years now, and it hasn't been leaked yet. So maybe not. I don't know.
Here's the pointed question to all of this, of course. Do you think there's anything in there damning? Now, think about the fact that this is somebody who's been audited every year since 1971.
Probably not. I mean, he's probably just another person that takes advantage of every single loophole that he can. And those loopholes are legal for a reason. So I think it might make a lot of people mad, but ultimately there's nothing that they can do about it. There's nothing illegal about utilizing the loopholes that the government actually put in place.
Yeah, and I mean, once again, too, I mean, if you make as much money per year and have as much assets as this man claims to have, you're getting audited. I mean, the federal government
Yeah.
wants their money.
Yeah,
They
they
want
do.
it now.
Yeah, they're going to put their best auditors on the case. They're going to spend months going through it and finally clear it, I guess.
Which was that was the reason that he came out and said that he couldn't release them right at the beginning, was the fact that they were still going up under audit. I think he's trolling them at this point.
Maybe.
I really do.
Very possible.
I think he's trying to come out and see just how many constitutional amendments they will break on him. Because they can't will him to do so. That's against the Fifth Amendment.
Right.
But I do have to wonder if we're actually if they're gonna do it, if they'll go that far or break the Constitution. Are the chatters being rowdy?
No, they're just saying that Ron says Warren Buffett takes all the loopholes. It's been said his executive secretary pays more in taxes than he does, and that Gates does the same thing, and so does Bezos. I mean, if the loopholes are there and you make that much money, why wouldn't you want to keep your own money? I worked in a tax firm for like 3 years. It didn't matter how much money people made. When they filed their taxes every year, they all had the exact same question. How can I pay less in taxes? Every year. It didn't matter if they paid $50,000 in taxes or $1,500 in taxes. Every single person asked the same question. How can I pay less taxes? Every year. Nobody wants to pay taxes.
Right.
No one.
But of course, we've got our friends over there on the left that want other people to pay taxes, just not themselves.
Exactly. Right. I guarantee you, if they passed all the things that the Democrats wanted passed, taxes skyrocketed, they would be going to their CPAs and saying, how can I not pay that many taxes? Do I need to create an offshore account? Do I need to put my LLC in Thailand? What do I have to do to pay less taxes? They would go ask those questions.
How do I make Bezos pay his taxes? That's going to be another one that comes up out of this. Yeah, I think that this is all a show at this point, a dog and pony show. And I mean, the biggest thing that I get a kick out of when I look at this too is these people are in a position to pass a law to compel the president to make his taxes. I don't think it'll pass the Supreme Court, but they're in a position to make that law. But
He would challenge it. I think he would
veto it. It wouldn't get to challenge. He would veto that shit.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the court case for a second. I was going to say if they rule against him, he would appeal it.
Yeah.
He'll just keep appealing it until it's no longer relevant and no one cares anymore, or we're just tired of hearing about it and nobody wants to talk about it anymore.
But yeah, I mean, it's been a voluntary thing for, what is it? Nixon was the first one to do it, I think.
What a precedent.
What, Nixon?
Just what a precedent to be the first one to set, like, I'm just going to tell you what's in my taxes. That's crazy.
The guy that's famous for saying, I am not a crook.
Right. Who was most definitely a crook.
Yeah, that he was. But yeah, I mean, the tradition comes out of, I think it was Nixon. No, it wasn't Kennedy. I can't imagine a Kennedy showing his taxes willingly.
Probably not. No.
But I think the president came up out of Nixon, and then yeah, just everybody after that just said, okay, well, here you go. I got nothing to hide.
Right.
And now that they want him so bad, now it's okay. Well, he's got something to hide. Well, maybe you didn't jump down his throat every 6 seconds about the thing every time something else falls out from the bottom from you. Then he wouldn't be acting like he's got something to hide.
Right. I think they always have something to hide.
Yeah, they do. Anybody who's got money and power has got something to hide. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
What about, and this is the other one here. You want to walk us through this one here? The faithless electors decision?
Oh, gosh. So
I can run that if you want me to.
let me find the link. There we go.
This is going to be a good one to talk about, given the fact that we've got the interstate compact running through the country right now.
Right. So most people don't know this, or maybe they've just forgotten. But in 2016, 10 out of the 538 electors went rogue. They voted for someone, or they tried to vote for someone other than who their pledged candidate was. So I think it's 32 states plus DC have laws meant to discourage faithless electors. But no states until 2016 had ever actually punished or removed an elector because of their vote. So even back when Tony Nathan, the very first libertarian woman to run for president, I think she was even the first woman ever on the presidential ballot, maybe? I have to double check that. But anyways, Tony Nathan, she got a faithless elector vote. She was the first one to do so. Even the person that, voted for her didn't get removed or was punished because of their vote. This ruling enables states to decide whether or not they will penalize an elector for breaking their pledge. So it makes pledges legally binding, whereas before they were legally binding, but there were no real penalties with teeth in them to punish people with.
And I mean, like I say, with the interstate compact coming, this I think is going to be important because we're going to sit down and see the point which the interstate compact that boils me up inside to begin with, but whether an elector will go through with his state's decision or whether it will go into the compact and that particular elector will go right along with the national popular vote. What's your take on the interstate compact, by the way?
I am actually looking up a question from the chat of how there were 10 electors and someone asked, who did they attempt to vote for? So I'm going to see.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember the commercial. Because Martin Sheen was running the top of the commercial. Yes, just vote with your conscience. If we get 37 of you to change your mind, then we can save the country from this lawless president or whatever the hell he said. That was such a cringy video.
So 3 of the faithless electors voted for Colin Powell, John Kasich, Ron Paul, Bernie Sanders, and Faith Spotted Eagle. So 3 electors went for Colin Powell, and then Kasich, Paul, Sanders, and Eagle got 1 vote each.
Did you just say Spotted Eagle?
Yes.
That is the first time I've ever heard that name.
She's a member of the Sioux Nation. She was someone who attempted to block the Keystone XL pipeline.
It's all coming into place then.
Apparently ran for president. So they were called the Hamilton electors because of his Federalist Paper number 68.
I see. I have not got that far into the Federalist Papers, I will admit. I am reading through it currently, but I'm not to 68 yet.
Okay, so of the faithless electors, 7 were supposed to vote for Hillary Clinton and didn't.
Okay. That is interesting.
Sorry, I'm reading this wrong. Successfully. Okay, no, Hillary Clinton lost 5 of her pledge electors, and Donald Trump lost 2. So there were 7 successfully cast faithless votes.
Okay.
That's where the 3 for Colin Powell and then the 1 each for the others came from. So yeah, it's very interesting.
So going back to the question that I asked while you were looking this up here, where do you land on as far as the interstate compact goes?
I don't know enough about it to have a really strong opinion about it. I know like the basics.
It's a pretty basic one. It's the states are trying to get up to 270 electoral votes. And then if they can do that, then they will bind their electors to whoever wins the national popular vote. To hell with whatever their states say.
Oh, okay. When I was looking this up and when I read your article, I was like, this doesn't relate at all to the article, but because it has to do with criminal cases. Okay, yeah, that's completely different. So I don't think it's right. I think people should be allowed to vote for their conscience. And I saw someone on Facebook mention that it might be a 9th Amendment issue for that because of clause of consciousness, I think it's called.
I believe so. Let me have a look.
So we might see another court case come out of this. There may be pushback from maybe faithless electors from 2016 where they want to protect future faithless electors from being punished. But because so few states have penalties already in place, we may not see states pass legislation to assess penalties until 2024 because the election is only 4 or 5 months away.
Mm-hmm. Well,
even if they passed it right now, I mean, there's a possibility of executive order that would go into place in a state that didn't have a penalty. Their governor could sign an executive order and say it's effective October 1st. Mm-hmm. You know, they could do that within the next few months and couple months and be fine. And it would count for 2020. But I think most states, we won't see any ramifications from this until 2024. So it will take a little while. And in the meantime, there could be another Supreme Court case.
I see. There was something else I was going to ask you, and I can't think of what it was because we're going right down this here. I can't think of what this was.
I don't know either.
This is going to bother me. I'm going to come up with it at the very end of the show, too. I did that on Contemporary Friday, too. I couldn't think of Bolton's name when I was talking about him at the beginning of the show, and then it came to me right as I was going through the outro.
How do you forget Mr. Mustache?
I could see his face, and I could definitely see his mustache. I could not think of his name.
Okay.
That is an epic mustache. All
right.
We are going to be talking about the election here coming up and some of the stuff that's happening here. But before we do that, let's go check in with the live chat and see what they've got to say while I cue a couple things up here.
Kanye 2020.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah.
Apex. That's a new name, too. Welcome on in.
Hi, Apex. Ron is loving his gifts today.
Oh, Ron loves the stickers. Man, he loves the stickers.
I like Corona Lisa. That's funny.
I saw Harvey McLeod in here earlier, too, because she had a good one in here. Voluntarily doing it is noble enough, but you don't have to. Like you wouldn't show your internet history to someone just because they demand it. No, I've actually got a compact with a few people that if I die mysteriously, go and erase my internet history.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys have that, actually.
I think more people have that than they're willing to admit have it. Women too, for sure.
Not because you have anything to hide, even if you do, but it's none of their business. So that's the way we need to start looking at the government, is that sentiment right there. Even if you don't have anything
Absolutely.
to hide, it is not anybody else's business in order to what you're doing in your personal life. It's just like when people say,
Exactly.
What do you need a gun for?" That's none of your business.
Because I want it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a need, it's a want. I don't have to tell you.
Just call Bolthead the head warmonger. Easy to remember.
Bolthead. That's good.
NordVPN. Thanks, Torino X. I got a Curious too over on Periscope.
Christ.
Is it
I
Chris?
think it's Christ. Yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot of new names in here. Welcome on in, guys. I hope you stick around for the rest of the show and for the remainder shows. That's awesome.
Let's give the people what they want. Let's talk about Kanye 2020
Well, before we
and
talk
how that's going to work or not work.
Before we talk about Kanye 2020, I've got a video here of somebody's reaction to Kanye 2020, and I told you that this was going to be coming like this. So let me get that queued up here and talk about, or we'll listen to this song, and then we'll talk about it. So let's get that loaded up here.
I'm kind of scared, honestly.
Oh, it's worth it. Where's my interact button? Sorry for the on-air production here. I didn't get this teed up before I went here. All right, are you ready?
I'm scared.
Get fucked, Kanye West, get fucked, now's not the time for this stunt. Get fucked, Kanye West, get so far fucked and take your Kardashian. How do I compare thee to a piece of trash? I guess this is the way billionaires get laughs, showing us the worst of humanity. A narcissistic jackass's vanity. No, he don't wanna run for president, wants to help his Nazi friend get reelected. So suck my dick, sit on my fist. The day is gonna come when we eat the rich. Get fucked, Kanye West, get fucked, now's not the time for this stunt. Get fucked, Kanye West, get so far fucked.
So the video was really laggy there, and you probably missed it at the end, but she threw the bird up at the end of it too. So needless to say, a lot of people over on that side of the aisle are not really happy with Kanye West right now. What is your take on that? A little bit of cringe.
Lots of people have lots of feelings. That's all I'll say. So many feelings.
So tell me a little bit about what's going on here with Kanye, because I know we talked last week that he just made his announcement, said he was running.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But now he's actually
the problem
serious.
Is, he can't be though, because the deadlines have already passed for like 9 states. He can't even be on the ballot in his own state of California, where he's likely to be most popular because he lives there. That is kind of the trend. You're most likely to, I mean, Gary Johnson got a really high percentage of votes in New Mexico because people know him. So you would think that Kanye would get the most votes from California, and that's not going to happen because he's not going to be on the ballot, even as an independent. Like, I think the filing deadlines have all passed for that. So he could still be on some state ballots, but I don't think it's enough states to, even if he won them and swept all of them and got all of the electoral votes for those states, I think because California's deadline has passed and that's so many electors, I don't think he could get 270.
So, with that being said, do you think our little songbird over there actually has a point that he's just trying to get the Donald reelected? Because I've heard some of his speeches.
Yeah. Also, Kanye's crazy.
Yeah.
He talks
So
about
is the
things
Donald.
like, right, but he's like crazy in a different way. There are levels of crazy. Kanye's crazy in a completely separate way from Donald Trump. He talks about the mark of the beast and injecting things into your body and all that kind of stuff. Now, people who like dystopian fiction talk about things like that. But no one actually serious who runs for office talks about those things because they're not popular. They don't win you votes. There are extremists in the Libertarian Party that talk about things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I highly suggest that they not run for office because it's not going to go over well.
You're alienating half the live chat right now.
Sorry.
Because I can name the ones in our live chat that say the same kind of things.
I have opinions. I have opinions. That's why he picked me.
Yeah,
Blame
that's true.
him.
So,
They all have thoughts about Kanye running. Harvey says good voice, but she should be canceled for racism.
well, yeah, that's one of the things too that goes along with that. I mean, what point in everything that we've had going on over the last, what has it been, 6 weeks at this point? Is it okay for a white woman to come up and tell a black man what to do?
It's not okay for anybody to tell anybody else what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, especially not the government. Like, you can express that you are unhappy with someone's opinion, but wrongthink is something completely different. If you're the government trying to tell people that they can't think a certain way or do a certain thing or say something. But everyone's free to have an opinion about everyone else's opinions.
Well, Kanye is, I mean, according to the press conference that he put out early last week, he is actually serious about doing this. He has
believe it.
He has formed a new political party called the Birthday Party,
Which was a suggestion from Elon, because
which was
of
a
course.
suggestion from
No.
Elon Musk. What timeline is this?
It's 2020. Welcome to the future.
It was there a rip in reality sometime in late 2015?
I think so. There had to have been. I wonder what it. No, I know what it was. The
What's
Mayan
that?
calendar was off. That's what it was. It was off by a few years. This is an alternate timeline.
It has to be, because there's so much unrealistic that's going on with this right now. I do want to read from Page 6 News for just a second, because it looks like Mr. Musk has backpedaled out of this. From Jessica Bennett, last week Kanye West announced that he's running for president with the full support of his close friend Elon Musk. After reading West's latest interview with Forbes, however, the Tesla founder appears to be backpedaling. Following the publication of the Q&A, where West announced he's never voted in his life, plans to run the White House like Wakanda, and believes vaccines are the mark of the beast, Twitter user John Crowley responded to Musk's original tweet with a link to the story, writing, "Come on, Elon, you're way too intelligent for this BS." In a now-deleted tweet, Musk responded, "We may have more differences of opinion than I anticipated." So, I mean, he's not even sure at this point.
I missed that part. That's funny. That's really funny. Because I think Kanye said something like Elon was going to be Secretary of Commerce or something like that. I don't know.
Which would not be the worst decision in the world.
Probably not. I mean, Elon believes in meritocracy. I'm all about that. He wants to give people who know what they're doing good jobs and good positions in his company, and he would probably approach government the same way.
So, yeah, I know a lot of people in the chat are talking about the fact that he's got the album coming out, which is also a reality, but
Yes.
he did talk about running in 2024 as well.
I mean, he talks about a lot of things.
He does. He talks.
Just like the Donald, what can you really take seriously? I don't take it seriously for 2020.
I don't know. It's a hilarious thing to think about.
I think a lot of people will be writing him in on their ballots.
And that, I think, is going to be a great thing. And who knows? Maybe if enough people write him in, then we'll get other people writing Jorgensen in.
Maybe.
Or maybe somebody will write me in other than me, because I'm writing myself in.
Why are you writing yourself in?
Because I can't get behind any of the 4 people that are going to be on the ballot in my state. And I already know who's all going to be on there. And I can't give my full support to any 4 of them. Plus, I promised that one Bernie pollster that I was going to. We talked about that the first time when you were on Ed's World.
Those are promises that must be kept.
Those are promises that must be kept.
If you tell a Bernie bro, you must do it. Otherwise, Santa Claus will bring you coal.
This is going completely off the rails at this point.
Let's get back on track, shall we?
I think so. So, after we're done laughing about this, we did have something else that popped up in the news. And, of course, we had to hear about it on the news because it happened in this direction, because you know, as well as I do, that if it happened in the other direction, and I'm going to have a video play here in just a second, because it's Fox News and that's what they do. As soon as you go onto their site, they start playing a video. But
autoplay. The joys of autoplay.
Yeah. I try and get around it as much as I can. And I had everything queued up so it wouldn't autoplay, but this one refreshed while we were on... Yep, there's those Fox News tones that are going to get me demonetized. Anyway, out of Elkins, West Virginia, and this is something that's been going on for a little while here, a West Virginia postal carrier pleaded guilty Thursday to altering mail-in requests for absentee voter ballots. Thomas Cooper entered the plea in federal court in Elkins to attempted election fraud and injury to the mail, U.S. Attorney Bill Powell said in a statement. Cooper was charged in May after 8 mail-in requests for absentee voter ballots had their party affiliations altered. And it is worth noting that he altered all of them with a black pen from D to R. So what have you heard on this story so far?
So I read the news story that you posted, and I've seen other things as well about attempted election fraud with mail carriers. So I'm an advocate for absentee ballot voting. Mm-hmm. I had to absentee ballot in 2018 because I was in New Mexico and not in Tennessee. I will probably have to absentee ballot this year because I will probably be traveling. And I don't want to take the chance that I might not be traveling and would be able to vote. I'd rather just be, rather be safe than sorry. So I'm an advocate of mail-in voting. Otherwise, I would not be able to vote. And there's a lot of other people that way as well. So for me, I kind of look at it as, okay, they stopped it from happening. Like they caught it before it was an issue. Mm-hmm. So that's good. That means that there are checks in place that prevent it from happening and that they're working. But then it also begs the question, should we have a separate process that operates outside of the Postal Service for mail-in voting? Something like a mail service that is only active every 2 years. And then local elections, states can decide whether or not they want the U.S. Postal Service to do that, or if they want some other kind of independent organization to do it. I think that would be a more interesting question. Is if we don't trust the United States Postal Service to do this, who do we trust to do it, and how would that look?
And a better question would be, would the private companies get involved, or would they be able to be impartial in something like this?
Mm-hmm. True. It's a really interesting question.
I
think it's a natural evolution of our democracy if we continue down this path, especially now that we've had COVID and we know that there are risks to risk in some way, shape, or form. It's arguable how much. It's risky for older people, younger people, immunocompromised people to be in large crowds, to go vote, etc. That's not the case all over the country, but it is in states like New York, or metro areas like New York City, Chicago, things like that. Mm-hmm. Do we allow them to have a separate process so that they can actually conduct safe elections?
Well, that's the other side of that too, because we're looking at some of this right now, and I read an article this morning talking about, I believe it was in Chicago itself, where they've just got mail-in ballots piling up, and they can't count them all fast enough. And once again, like you said, in the little town that I live in, if we went to a straight absentee vote, they'd have it done in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
There are like 7,000 people, if that, in the district that I live in. It'd be done in an afternoon. We'd have 4 or 5 volunteers on it, go running it through the machine. But yeah, I mean, there are precincts in Milwaukee, Chicago. It was Milwaukee, actually, not Chicago, but there are precincts in Milwaukee that are just 70,000 ballots piling up right now. And they can't get through
Right.
them all.
Mm-mm. No, it takes days.
Months even. Because our primary was back in April.
Oh, really? They're still not done?
They're still going through it.
Oh my gosh, that's insane. I can't imagine that.
No.
And it might be something where it needs to be localized because that process doesn't work for every precinct. So precincts that have 70,000 votes, it may not be feasible to do it that way. We may have to switch over to electronic voting.
Well, I know for us it is, you have a paper ballot, and you fill in the bubble, and then you put it through the Scantron like you did when you were a kid and you were taking the standardized tests. And that does it.
Yeah.
So it's a mishmash of paper ballot and electronic voting. So I've got one important question on you because of the direction that this went in.
Mm-hmm.
In your opinion on this, because you said you're opinionated, would we have heard about this if this went the other direction?
Yes, absolutely.
You think?
I think so.
I don't know. I've been curious about that. Because I know that one of the big narratives that they try to push is the fact that, well, there is no such thing as voter fraud. It never happens. It's 0.00001%. And then here we got this guy doing it, and it made a big news story because he went for the Republican side. So that's just been something that's been gnawing at the back of my head since all of this started.
True.
All right. You want to keep going? You want to do a chat break quick, or?
Chat break real quick. Generational gap is here. Torino says, when they double slit quantum eraser experiment tech in 2011 that caused the stock market dip and proved time travel is possible, it led to multiple timelines. I hope someone understands that because I do not.
I do, actually. I didn't know they had done that, but yes, I understand what was going on in that.
Generational Gap says, I don't believe there's any non-corruptible voting method. Might as well make one standardized system. I kind of tend to agree.
I tend to disagree just because of the way the Constitution was laid out. I mean, they've been trying to make this a one-size-fits-all federal election for at least 100 years, but Article 2, Section 1 stands in the way of that.
Well, I agree. So I'll reiterate. I do agree that there is no non-corruptible voting method. I think it doesn't matter what method you choose. There will always be a certain percentage of voter fraud.
Mm-hmm.
Always. If you do mail-in ballots, you have the possibility even that grandson fills out grandma's ballot and sticks it in the mail and she doesn't realize it.
Right.
And maybe she requests another one and she votes twice because she thinks, well, I didn't fill out the first one. And it's just completely accidental, but it's technically voter fraud.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have people that are mail carriers that are not doing their jobs properly and they end up losing ballots or replacing them or changing them or whatever the case may be. Or if you did electronic voting, someone would hack the system and put 100,000 votes into the other column than what it should have been. So
right.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
Or you have the case, and I didn't put this in the news story, but I did laugh about this last night when I was watching Beauty and the Beta. The dead cat that's been dead for 10 years that got a mail-in voting ballot.
I saw that. That was so funny.
10 years dead and a cat, and the cat got a mail-in voting ballot.
There you go.
All right.
I did. Oh, this was funny. Side story. In 2018, I did have someone text me when we were doing phone banking and ask me, "Can my cat vote?" And I said, "No. Unfortunately, our feline overlords have not advanced to the point where they can use their thumbs to vote." And she was like, "Oh my God, I did not expect a response. That's hilarious. I'm voting for Gary Johnson." I was like, yes. Generation shit poster winning.
That is amazing.
You can win people over when you're doing text messages if you're funny. You can win them over with humor, or if you have better memes than they do. But I don't make a habit of doing that. But yeah, it was like 2 days before the election, and we were just like, we had so much work to do, and we were just like, whatever. All the rules are out the window right now. Do whatever you can.
Hey, my friend from across the pond joined us. Welcome on in, Blippity Blop. All right. Because
Ron has one last comment. The
What's that?
cat must have they must have miscounted how many lives that the cat had left.
That's awesome. All right. So because the Libertarian Party did this recently, you want to take this one here?
Sure. Let me find the link really quickly.
You know which one I'm looking at, right? The remote
Yeah, the
voting one?
DNC outlines remote voting process for
Yeah.
Milwaukee Convention.
Yep.
Let me tell you, I was logging in and out on YouTube, watching the convention. I don't recommend it. I just don't. They spent the entire first day, like 9 hours of the first day, just arguing whether or not to let remote participation happen.
Now,
Finally, that was decided, and then the rest of the convention could continue.
somebody told me that they spent the first, 2 hours of the day arguing who was more of a socialist.
It wouldn't surprise me.
So walk us through what's going on, though, with the DNC coming up here. And
So, the Secretary, Jason Ray, wrote to the delegates on Friday and outlined their process for this year's convention, noting that the planning committee concluded that state delegations should not plan to travel to Milwaukee and official convention business will be conducted remotely. So they've made the decision to not have a partial convention like we did, where we had some delegates in person and some remote. They're doing the entire thing remotely. They're using a system the planning committee crafted themselves that allows them to cast their ballots via email with unique identifiers for security. I think that we also did that with the LNC voting. So, and I think it worked pretty well. The problem that the LP had was that they were using a system that they designed called Porcupine, because that's our mascot. And that app crashed. And that was completely unexpected because it had been tested, I think, ahead of time, and it worked. So they were not expecting that. So the lack of kind of a plan B, C, D, F, all the way down the line, not having all those backup plans in place really hurt them because they were not expecting that to crash. So the DNC is obviously much more well-funded than the Libertarian Party. So they've probably had policy process experts with their bylaws working on this for months. And that might have something to do with their success rate. I guess we'll see if they have as much trouble with it as the Libertarian Party did.
you have a lot more faith in them than I do. Because I'm predicting this is going to be a gigantic disaster, but I'm looking at this and I'm asking myself, is this to try and quell the promise that Kyle Jurek made all the way back in January that if they don't get their way, Milwaukee will burn? Because there is one YouTuber that I regularly listen to that has brought that point up before, that there was the promise out there that the Bernie supporters would burn Milwaukee to the ground if they didn't get Bernie on the ticket. Which I kind of wanted to see that.
I mean, anything could happen at this point, so we'll just have to wait and see. Enjoy the show.
I don't know. It's like I said, you have way more faith in the Democrat Party than I do because they're also. How many delegates is the LP?
Um, 900 something or 1100 something. It was somewhere around 1,000.
Okay, so that's not as small as I thought. I thought it was actually going to be way smaller than that. But
No, we actually do have quite a bit of delegates for the size of the party. It's our delegation. Our delegates are distributed by state based on membership numbers, which is why a lot of people encourage libertarians in their state to register with National Party, even if they don't. Even if they don't really want to participate all that much, they still ask that you register because it helps them get more delegates.
because Kokesh is a delegate, if I remember correctly, I believe he said that on my show.
Yeah,
And
he is. He was.
our friend Rachel is too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I think she was as well. Yeah, but the DNC has, God, I don't even know how many delegates, thousands.
They need a minimum of 1991 to clinch the nomination, so that's obviously going to be at least half, if not more, or less rather.
Yeah. So it says that they've planned for technical issues, and if a delegate has technical issues or doesn't have internet access, alternate methods of voting are available. I'm assuming that they have delegation chairs for their state the same way that the LP does. So there's one person that's kind of in contact with and in control of all of the delegates in their state. So if they're in a state like, I don't know, Alaska, and they've got like 25 delegates or something like that, there's one person that's in constant contact with those delegates. And let's say somebody loses internet access, they can probably pick up the phone or send a text message to their delegation chair and say, I don't have internet access, this is my vote. Or maybe they just have mobile data or something like that. I don't know. It seems like they've accounted for errors and internet access issues and other things like that. So we'll just have to see if it's successful.
But I mean, this shouldn't be a big deal either, because Biden is clinched at this point. He cleared the 1991.
Yeah, it does say that they will know who their nominee is before it actually starts. Yeah, because the window for voting begins August 3rd and closes on the 15th. The delegation chairs are then asked to submit the final tallies to the DNC secretary, and that means that they will know the tally of votes for the nominee before the 4-day convention formally kicks off on August 17th. I think it's going to leak early, probably.
Oh, yeah.
But like you said, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised that Joe Biden's the nominee. There's going to be a lot of people unhappy about it, though.
Well, one last curveball that I want to throw into this here, because
there's more.
There's one last curveball I want to ask you on this, because there's one thing that's got to stay on the back of our minds, given the geriatric nature of our two major party candidates right now, is what do you think this does if Joe Biden dies between now and August?
That's awful.
No, but it's still something we still have to think about.
I have no idea how their internal process is, how their bylaws might deal with that. I don't even know if they know.
I know there's a plan in place. It's just with the delegation and the technology, everything else. I was reading up on this, and there actually is a plan in place for what happens if they have to either withdraw a candidate. And this was back from 2016 when it was Trump versus Hillary. This article that I read was written. So if they have to withdraw a candidate, or if the candidate dies, then they do have both the Republican National Committee and the Democrat National Committee both have plans in place to do so. But those plans, from what I read about them back in March, did also depend on there being an in-person convention.
Right.
So now we're looking at technology getting in the way of all of this as well.
Mm-hmm. I think if Joe Biden kicks it before convention, they're going to nominate Hillary.
That sounds like a good way to get two in the back of the head for Joe Biden and have him talk about suicide.
I personally would not want to be the one person standing between Hillary Clinton and the White House. Sounds like a very dangerous place to be.
Yeah? Yeah, I can see that.
He could still pick her as his running mate.
that's just a suicide note in and of itself.
Right, exactly. Or he retires for medical reasons in like 18 months, and then she gets to have the presidency.
I don't
I don't
know.
know. Harvey says then she'd lose twice.
I think that it would happen. I don't think that anybody wants that woman to be president.
I don't think anybody wants Kanye to be president either.
I think you'd be surprised by that one.
I think the people that want it are people that just want to see the world burn. They're collapsitarians.
So, moving on off of this topic, I want to talk just a bit about this Vindman story that came up over the last week because it's got a couple moving parts. I actually had, because I've got a friend that works alongside them. He's not in the military, but he works alongside there, and he actually studies military history. So he actually clued me in a lot on what's happening here because the first time I read this article, I was painfully ignorant to what was going on with all of this. Just to look at a bit here from CNN Politics, Vindman to retire from military. His lawyer blames White House campaign of bullying, intimidation, and retaliation. Now, for those of you who are keeping score at home, Vindman was talked about being blocked from his naturally occurring promotion that was coming up. He was going to be promoted, or he was supposed to be promoted to colonel coming up this year, but it was talked about, and it was never actually, they never came out and said that he was going to be blocked, but it was talked about. So, of course, Tammy Duckworth came out and said, well, she's not going to confirm anything else now, any other promotions unless they promote Vindman. Fast forward 1 week, and now Vindman has retired. Lieutenant Colonel Alex Vindman, a key witness in President Trump's impeachment inquiry, is retiring from the U.S. Army after more than 21 years of service because he determined that his future in the armed forces will be forever limited due to political retaliation by the president and his allies, his lawyer told CNN on Wednesday. Vindman has endured a campaign of bullying, intimidation, and retaliation, spearheaded by the president following his testimony in the impeachment inquiry last year, according to his attorney, Ambassador, I think, David Pressman, who is a partner at Jenner and Block. And the first thing that I have to say to this is Vindman defied a direct order from the commander-in-chief to not testify at the impeachment. So that's the first strike against him as to whether or not he was going to get his promotion. But on top of this as well, from what I understand, people who are involved with the military, especially when they're higher up or get brought into a White House position, are also put into a contract where they're not allowed to engage in politics while they're up in their position. So he's violated, I don't know if it's his orders, or he's had 2 violations down. He's expecting to get a promotion.
But at least in this case, it seems like that could be a situation where a president, I'm not saying this one did this, but that a president could directly order someone to go against not only their conscience, but the law, and that military law would supersede, federal law, and that they would still be held to that standard. They would still have to obey, even if it was, went against their conscience and went against, everything that they believed in. I don't know how those two things intersect, is I guess what I'm saying. So it's possible. I feel like that is a situation that could occur.
Oh, it absolutely is. And I mean, there are a ton of moving parts that go along with this. I can't even begin to unwrap this, but the one thing that just keeps popping up to my mind is that he was ordered not to testify. Specifically.
And that seems like obstruction of justice. Like, that's what that sounds like.
Yeah. So I don't know, and once again, I don't know where chain of command comes in on this, but I know that now he is free from his political contracts, that he can go out and either take a job in the private sector with a news company, because now he can do that too. He wasn't able to do that as an enlisted member. And he's free to do a lot of things.
Probably, I'm going to guess that there were probably terms and conditions attached to his retirement. that they were not going to release him from the contract he had with the military unless he agreed to certain things.
That's probably pretty intelligent out of this. So, do you think that do you think there's a tell-all book coming?
Probably. Everyone who leaves the White House writes a tell-all book.
Yeah, that they do. So, and unfortunately, even with the explanation to me, I am painfully ignorant about what's going on with this one. But I thought it was worth noting because of the political atmosphere versus the private party atmosphere and what's going to come out of this. And especially with what you had said, whether there is a conflict of interest or obstruction of justice going on to this. So I think we're going to learn a lot coming out of Vindman coming out of this. I'd be looking forward to seeing what it is that he has to say, and what's true, what isn't true, and what's going to sell a book. But yeah, there's a lot going on here.
I mean, it'll sell to Democrats. That's who will buy it. But I've also heard rumors from within the military that Vindman's kind of a jerk anyway.
Yeah.
Nobody likes you.
So walk me through this ICE article here that you submitted up here at the last minute. I've kind of paged through it, and
I kind of surprised you. Surprised you with it.
I've got surprise stupidity later on, so you got me back.
Good. All right, let me find it here. Yeah, so ICE is launching a Citizens Academy course on how to basically perform a citizen's arrest of suspected undocumented immigrants. Just let that sink in for a minute.
Are they out of money? I know they just paid a bunch of money to Wayfair, which I don't even have that on.
They're saying that it is... My computer's mad at me right now. They're saying that this is supposed to be a pilot program that will be implemented nationwide eventually. So basically, it's legalizing racial profiling for anyone and everyone. It's just giving citizens the power to racially profile other people who are brown, because that's all this is, and stop them on the street. It's like, that will be absolutely horrifying. That will be a terrifying existence for anyone in this country who is not white or white passing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that would give like carte blanche to all those cousin fuckers that used to hang out in my Discord server too.
Ouch. Burn. Yes, exactly.
You weren't there to meet those ones, but I'm sure you know the kind of person I'm talking about.
I'm sure that I do. Generational Gap says, you too can be ice ice, baby.
I love that. So I mean, they're doing a good job as far as it is, and actually identifying real illegal people. Why would they do something like this other than, like you had just said? I mean, is there an actual political angle to this other than just terrorizing brown people?
I can't see one. You know what I mean? I can't imagine what else it could possibly be.
Yeah, I've never been big on the president. I'm not voting for him this time, but I've never seen him as the lowest of the low Hitler that most of everybody else sees it. He's been a C+ president in my eyes. C-, maybe.
This is included in the course.
Yeah.
Defensive tactics, firearms familiarization, and targeted arrests. Training would be scenario-based, and added that exercises would be conducted in a safe and positive environment.
Jeez.
That sounds terrifying.
And because it's the president's...
Bugs.
Because it's the president's... Because
and they're starting it in Chicago.
Yeah.
The pilot program is in Chicago.
Oh, jeez. Hey, I could attend. That's within driving distance of here.
No, Chicago has such a gun crime problem.
Oh, I know.
Also, it's really difficult to get a firearm in Chicago. They actually just have a gun ban. So why are you training these people for firearms familiarization unless you think that they're going to be carrying?
Which some of
Those
them
two things don't
probably
fit
are.
together. Some of them probably are, but that defies the city's order of a gun ban.
Yeah. No,
So how's that work?
that is a weird point that I wouldn't have either thought of. And I mean, Illinois itself, not even just Chicagoland, but Illinois itself is horrible on that too. Do you have any idea how many hoops you have to jump through to get reciprocity in Illinois?
Too many?
A lot.
No, the answer is too many.
Yeah. I
You
have
shouldn't
it.
have to jump through any.
I have it. I've jumped through all of them. It is
Yeah.
a process and a half. So no, wow.
This is going to turn into Ahmaud Arbery all over,
Oh yeah.
like all over the city of Chicago.
Oh
Well,
yes.
I stopped him because he was brown, and then he threatened me, and I shot him. That's what this is going to turn into. It's a terrible policy, and I hope someone challenges the constitutionality of it.
I do too. Because these people that are taking this course, I mean, at least ICE is expected to follow the Constitution on this. Most of the people that are going to be taking this course have no idea what the fucking Fourth Amendment is. That's the one
Nope.
that comes after the third.
It's like a 3-day training course. It's 3 days over 6 weeks or something like that. Like 3 days for 6 weeks. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at it, but I already closed the article. So they're going to have even less training than police officers, which is already not that great. This is a powder keg waiting to go off in the city of Chicago.
Yep.
Gonna be great.
Now, speaking of powder kegs, I've got one more here that has blown up people over on the left from CNN. Trump defends decision to commute Roger Stone's sentence. That's a video, so I'm obviously not going to read that. But yes, Trump has decided that he's going to come back and commute the sentence of Roger Stone, who, if we'll all recall, was raided in the middle of the night by people busting down his doors with guns over the fact that, what was it, lying to the FBI was Roger Stone? It was something completely paltry.
I think so.
And he's 80 years old. He had a
Is he?
4-month sentence coming up from prison, and they threw the book at this guy. So he's getting commuted at this point, and of course
Okay.
the left blew up.
Right. But that doesn't actually change his conviction.
Right,
Like, they're not declaring him innocent, or that would be a pardon.
right. But if you would read Twitter, you would think a lot of people think that he's being pardoned right now.
I read Twitter far too often for my own good.
So you saw it.
Yes.
You saw plenty of it. Did people think? So, just for the people keeping score at home that don't necessarily know, of course I know, but tell the people what the difference is between this pardon and the commutation of sentence.
So if you commute a sentence, it means that it doesn't change that you have been convicted. Whereas a pardon is an overturning by the court. So that's almost, if you have a full overturn, then that's equal to an acquittal. Commutation does not affect that. It's basically substituting a lesser penalty for what's given after the conviction of a crime. So you're convicted, but they substitute a lesser penalty. Probably in Roger Stone's case, I would say it probably has to do with his age and his health.
Yeah, because he's probably not going to be able to finish out the full sentence that they had for him at this point.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I kept seeing about this over and over again is the fact that this is exactly like Michael Flynn over again, and the president or Bill Barr coming out and trying to save their friends, and this is a completely corrupted administration, which it's not a completely corrupted administration. I would say partially completely corrupted was the one that came before him. But that's another conversation for another time.
I think all of them are.
They are. How does this compare to the Roger Stone dismissal?
You are asking the wrong person.
Or, I'm sorry, not the Roger Stone dismissal, but the Flynn dismissal, rather.
I was so sick of impeachment crap by that time. I was like, I can't deal with any of this anymore. Because nothing I say or think is going to affect the outcome.
Right. Yeah, and this is different
That's
from.
generally my frustration with government,
Yeah.
is that I don't get a say in it.
Well, this is a lot like the Flynn case, though. If you look at it, I mean, for the most part, they railroaded Roger Stone into the conviction that he had to lying to the FBI. And we know that they railroaded Flynn because Flynn was, they threatened to go after his kid for something completely unrelated while he was sitting up on the stand. And they had the stroke notes that came out and said, well, is the objective to get him to lie or to get him fired? Or to get him to flip?
Yeah, there is that.
So these are people that are willing to put pressure on high-ranking, high-dollar officials that know the president. And it's just the thing that's disgusted me from the beginning of this presidency is they're willing to do this. What are they willing to do to you and I?
The same, but we don't have the power or the name recognition to fight it as well.
And that's been what's been driving me nuts about this.
Right.
But that's all that I have on this so far. Unless you have anything to add, we can go take a live chat break here, and I'll get the next set of stories set up here to talk about.
That sounds good. We're not even halfway through our list yet. It's been a big week.
It has.
So, High Just Liberty, I think they're a first-time joiner. Harvey, yes, you are correct. Your charges do still stand when the sentence is commuted. You just don't spend all your time in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. Sparta says capitalism is the largest religion. It's better than a lot of other religions.
Like socialism or statism.
Yeah, or authoritarianism or totalitarianism or fascism.
Hey, I'm an American. I will worship
We could
proudly.
do worse.
Yeah. I will worship proudly on the altar of capitalism.
All right, are we ready to go on this next set of stories? We still have a lot to get through.
You want to grab a couple more here while I'm setting up?
Sure. So, I think the next ones are all you. You have very strong opinions about Goya, apparently.
Ah, yes, the Goya thing.
The Goya thing.
So
How many people use Goya in their cooking? I'm going to ask the live chat. Raise your hand.
I don't, but I'm going to. You know what the thing about Goya was that really actually brought this to my attention? That I never knew what Goya was before this. When I was in mechanic school, there were a bunch of Latin students that came in, and they came in with the Malta Goya, which looks like a beer bottle.
Okay.
And the teacher was hassling them about that. They actually had to show them the label that said non-alcoholic on it.
I don't think I know what that is. I don't think I've ever seen it. Goya to me means like rice and beans.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
They do a few other things as well. The Malta Goya is a malt drink.
Mm-hmm.
It is a malted barley drink, but it's a non-alcoholic malted barley drink, and it comes in a brown bottle, like a beer bottle. So these kids were coming in and just drinking it in class like it was no big deal, and I mean to look and see a bottle like that in the middle of a school.
I mean, I had friends that would put vodka in their water bottles, and no one knew the difference. So
Yeah, well that's different.
I never did that.
I have.
You're such a bad kid. So tell me about your feelings about Goya.
All right. I will read from this article here quick, and I will do just that. Goya Foods CEO said U.S. blessed to have Trump as leader, and calls for boycott quickly followed. Goya, which says it's the nation's largest Hispanic-owned food brand, is facing backlash after its chief executive met with and heaped praise on President Trump at the White House on Thursday. On Twitter, boycott Goya and Goya Foods was trending in the United States, and some Latinos were also using the hashtag GoyaWay. So this has been... Goya, you like that one?
The left can't hashtag.
They cannot. So this is
Worse
just,
than the memes.
this has been something. It's just digs at me. First off, these people are throwing out and burning these things that they've already paid for.
That is my thing about all of these every time. I'm not going to watch NFL games. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. Guess what? The NFL contracts are already paid out. Mm-hmm. You've already bought the food. You've already bought the jersey. Burning it now is like lighting money on fire.
Yeah.
Just throw it in the back of your closet or donate it to Goodwill. Whatever you want to do. Or sell it. Like, sell it and get your money back at least.
I actually own a pair of Nike shoes, and I said I would never buy another pair of Nike shoes, but I had a pair that was just about a year old, and I had barely worn. And they're falling apart at this point now because, yeah, I use the shit out of them.
Burn them.
No, I'm not going to. Well, I will burn them now because they're about to fall apart, but I got my money's worth out of them first. Absolutely.
Burn them and feel morally superior.
I got my money's worth out of them before I burned them.
See, as a libertarian, I look at this two ways. Mm-hmm. The ways that we just talked about, but then also a freedom of association. Mm-hmm. Everyone has the right of freedom of association. So if you really are unhappy with Chick-fil-A or Hobby Lobby or Goya or whoever it may be, don't buy their products anymore. I mean, it's kind of silly to just not use products that you've already purchased. Give them away to someone. If you really care that much, give them away to someone who could use them more than you could. If you don't ever want to wear Nike shoes again and you have a pair of Nike shoes, instead of burning them, why don't you give them to a homeless person? That would be a better statement to make at that point than just burning them and making it into a virtue signal.
Well, and a lot of this comes along with the fact
it is your right to vote with your dollar. Mm-hmm. So if you want to do that and that's your choice, then by all means do it.
Well, and a lot of this too, I mean, if you look at this as well, if you look at Goya itself, Goya has donated millions and millions to charities helping to advance the lives of people in Latin America currently and Latinos that are in the U.S. They donate specifically to charities to do that. They employ millions of Latin people across North America and even somewhere into South America. There has been nobody who has been better to the advancement of the Latin people than Goya is at this point. But the Latin people are coming out and shredding their support for the company just because he said something nice about the evil orange man.
Right. Outrage culture at its finest.
But it struck back in the other direction here, and millions of people this week who had no idea what Goya was prior to any of this went out, and I saw empty store shelves. They cleared the store shelves of this stuff and donated not all of it, but large swaths of it to charity this week. So this did have a very awesome. Big silver lining off of this.
That's good. And see, if you remember, the exact same thing happened when Donald Trump said he was going to defund Meals on Wheels. Mm-hmm. Donations the next week started pouring in, and the program was completely funded voluntarily. So sometimes reverse of what you think is going to happen will happen, mm-hmm. and the problem will solve itself. So the company probably didn't lose any real profit. And that'll have to be something that they'll have to assess like at the end of the quarter or at the end of the year. Because those people may have bought the Goya once, mm-hmm. but they may not continue to buy it. Whereas someone who bought it every week might stop buying it.
I might start going out and buying some of that stuff if they can find some of the low carb stuff in there. I absolutely might go out and buy it. Like I say, I mean, it's good seasoning for a good price.
There you go.
So
good
that's
seasoning for a good price.
That's what I didn't know about Meals on Wheels.
That should be their new slogan.
Good spices at a good price. I like that.
Yeah, why not?
I didn't know about Meals on Wheels. I know that they did that with Planned Parenthood with the defund, mm-hmm. but I didn't know that about Meals on Wheels. That's awesome.
Yep. It was part of the, 2% budget cut or something like that. PBS got their budget cut as well. And I think they ended up getting donations out of that as well. So sometimes it does cause private charity to actually step up and fill in the gap, which is what I think as libertarians should always happen. That's always the goal, is for private charity to do what the government won't. So I do think the government should continue to slowly percent by percent defund these programs and put the responsibility of funding them back onto the American people. But at the same time, they really need to cut taxes.
Yeah, well, they've needed to cut taxes for a while, and now we've got people out there openly saying that they are going to increase taxes as well because that's going to be their campaign. I can't figure that out. How is that a winning strategy? I'm going to undo the tax cut that you just got.
Generational Gaps is calling it the goycott. It's very clever.
That's a better meme than Goy away.
Oh. And Harvey says, remember when Samantha Bee crapped on PragerU and the next day they got $50,000 in donations? I don't remember that, but okay. Sparta has a question.
What do you got, Sparta?
Name one person you would put in prison for life.
For life, huh? Does the person have to be alive or dead?
I don't know.
Like,
What do you think, Sparta?
Sparta, does the person
Alive or
have to
dead?
currently be alive?
I mean, if you were putting them in prison for life, then yes, they would have to be alive.
Okay, well
That's my assumption.
that kicks out Woodrow Wilson because that's who I would have been otherwise.
I'm going to go with O.J. Simpson.
Defend.
What? Defend? He's guilty.
But he got acquitted by a jury of his peers.
I think they were infiltrated. I think he's guilty. Didn't he write a book on like how I did it or something like that?
That could be.
I think he wrote a book on like how he would have done it if he had done it.
I gotta say, because I'm very reluctant to put people in prison.
Oh, Harvey's right.
Huh.
Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going to. It was going to be probably one of the Clintons, if not both, because especially with the fact that they used the suicide on everybody, because that's a cause that's near and dear to me. Absolutely has.
Mm-hmm.
So just to trivialize it like that by saying, well, these people didn't kill themselves, yeah, those would probably be the ones. And yeah, right there for driving all those poor souls to suicide, I see that.
Sparta says he approves of my choice. And Ron corrected me. It is called If I Did It.
Okay.
I think it was even promoted on Oprah.
All right.
Anyways, moving on.
Yeah.
That was way off topic, but that was fun.
Yeah,
That was a fun thought exercise. Thank you for the question.
All right. I did drop a couple stories up out of the stack, so we'll probably, because I know we're running up on time here.
We are running out of time.
All right. But this is one here, and I had to put this one in here because it seems that Trump might actually listen to my show because I've said this so many times. Trump says he'll sign an order with Road to Citizenship for DACA recipients from Raphael Bernal over at The Hill. President Trump said on Friday he intends to sign an executive order with an immigration within the next month that he said will include a Road to Citizenship for recipients of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. And we'll come down here and I'll get exactly what he said on this. He said in a quote, "No, what I'm going to do is they're going to be part of a much bigger bill on immigration. It's going to be a very big bill, a very good bill." And I'm not paraphrasing. That's exactly actually the transcript of what he said in there. "And a merit-based bill, and it will include DACA. I think people are going to be very happy. But one of those aspects of the bill is going to be DACA. We're going to have a road to citizenship." Which has been what I have been saying since the first time I heard the words Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. The Democrats are going to use these kids as a club. They're never going to get amnesty for them, path to citizenship. They're going to be Schrodinger's immigrants for the rest of their fucking lives. To only come out as a political club to wield against Republicans or even libertarians at that matter, even though they're open borders, the Democrats have to stay in power for the rest of time. What's your take on this?
So one of the other quotes he said, "But we put it in and we're probably going to then be taking it out." What does that even mean? And he meant that as like DACA being part of an executive order.
I don't know. It's
understand
Manhattan
that.
doublespeak.
No, it's Trump doublespeak. It's his favorite thing.
It is.
But then he clarifies it later and says that one of the aspects of the bill will be DACA, and there will be a road to citizenship. I don't know why all of the other things needed to be said if in the end they were just going to do a path to citizenship for DACA recipients. That's what should have happened all along. I mean, many of these people have never even been to their home country, let alone speak the language. And I've seen many stories, which are anecdotal, of course, but it does happen, where they're deported to their home country, where they do not speak the language, and therefore they can't work, they can't support themselves, they have no money, they end up homeless, they are away from their family, the only family that they've ever known, and they die there. They just suffer until they're dead.
I understand that entirely. What's your take on the DACA program in and of itself?
I mean, I think it's a good program on the whole. I don't see any reason to discontinue it. I just think that there should be a road to citizenship for everyone who wants to become a citizen, not just DACA.
Well, and one of the things, this actually came out right from the beginning of it, and I have written 3 articles on DACA. I have done 3 dedicated videos to DACA, and it has come up on the podcast and Contemporary numerous times over my life. I've been very passionate about this from the very
take it
beginning.
away.
And that is the fact that, like I said in the beginning, this is nothing but a political club. This is Schrodinger's immigration status is what it is.
Mm-hmm. It's just that they do the exact same thing with abortion, too.
These people are neither legal nor illegal as long as they're in the DACA program, but they do have documentation that makes them technically legal, but just an executive order could send them back over the border in a second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a terrible stress to live under if you're an immigrant.
And the Democrats, all they say when they're going through the lawmaking process is that they want to keep DACA in place forever. Why would you want to keep a program where people have to live under that stress in place forever?
No.
When you can take that piece of paper that says that you are certified into the DACA program and turn it into a fucking green card. I'm not even saying go in citizenship right now. At least give them a work permit off of that piece of paper. Mm-hmm. And then start running them down the path to citizenship.
Right.
But it would be really...
You have to make that path easier and cheaper.
It would be really easy for INS to just say, well, your DACA paperwork, well, that's your green card now. You're free. You're legal. You don't have to worry anymore. The next election might not affect you. It might not put you back over the border. And I've always said that if Trump did that, if he did path to citizenship for these people immediately, that would make it really hard for Democrats to win an election for a very long time.
Which could be what he's planning.
Mm-hmm. But I know up to recently he was on the idea, or so it seemed, of just end the DACA program and send them back over the border. It seemed like that for a really long time.
I think people probably told him that was not a good idea. Basically, here's my take on Donald Trump and his policies in general. If he says something that is extremely unpopular, and then someone tells him, hey, actually, by the way, if you're pro this policy, it will hurt the Democrats. He's like, all right, let's go. Let's do it. He'll do anything at all to hurt the Democrats, even though he was one for a very long time.
Oh, yeah. He absolutely was. I got into it with somebody on Twitter about that earlier on today. Mm-hmm. He thinks I make no sense because I said that Trump was a Manhattan Democrat, and I wasn't going to be voting for him after he called me a maggot several times.
Oh, well, because that always wins people over.
So here's one that might tickle your Nashville background here.
I was wondering when we were going to get to this.
The band Lady A files a lawsuit against singer Anita Lady A. White from The Hollywood Reporter via the Associated Press. Country group Lady A, which dropped antebellum from its name because of the word's ties to slavery, has filed a lawsuit against black singer who performed as Lady A for years. You want to take this one?
Sure.
We want to update our breaking news from
Lady
the top
Antebellum
of the show
was
concerning
already
the couple in the Central West.
referred to as Lady A in the music community in Nashville
Mm-hmm.
for years. I knew people who worked with them. Every time they were on the radio, whatever, they were always introduced as Lady A. They were only Lady Antebellum, like for tours and things like that. But if you were just talking about them in conversation with people who worked in the music industry who knew them or whatever, they always just called them Lady A.
Mm-hmm.
It just became a thing on its own. It wasn't anything that they forced. It wasn't anything that they asked for. It was just people naturally shortening their name. And I think probably 95+% of people that did it had no idea that another Lady A actually existed. They just didn't know.
Well, that's
I don't think those people can be faulted for using that name when they didn't know that there was another singer. And who would think to look something like that up? I certainly did not. But now we've crossed over into the cringy territory where they're suing her and there's going to be a legal battle. And like, that's just completely unnecessary in my opinion.
Well, I know this came out of the
He
fact.
predates them.
Yeah, oh yeah, by a long shot.
Yeah, by a lot. But it depends on if they've filed copyright or trademark or anything like that. If they've filed that and she hasn't, she's probably gonna lose.
From the first time I read this article, it appears to me that she actually has filed trademark on this. She filed trademark on this a while ago. And that's what's going on with this as well. From what I understand out of this article, this didn't come about until they officially changed the name, because of course now it's going to be changed on trademarking, official documents, corporate documents, and everything else that goes along with this. So now this pops up, but of course they had to stand in the soapbox and say that they were going to officially change it. That's what brought it to her attention too. So there are a bunch of other things that came up out of this, but this is, first off, the fact that they changed their name. Antebellum has nothing to do with slavery. It's a word that means before the war. It's a Latin phrase.
I did know that. Yeah. I don't know. It's all about perception. And I think that's what people associate it with. So it doesn't really matter what it actually means. It matters what people perceive it to mean. Like Webster's dictionary added irregardless to the dictionary.
I saw that. I
it's
cringed.
Not actually a word.
I cringed on that.
So did I. I was like, really? Oh, we're doing that now. Okay.
So I thought that was interesting to
found the
sit and
body of
look.
a
And
Extremely cringy.
I've got more video playing here while I'm sitting here, so I guess we might have to go into this next news story and talk about that, so I can shut the video up. So the McCloskeys got back into the news this week because they got served with a search warrant, and the police took the AR-15 that Mr. McCloskey was holding as part of the search warrant. It was seized pending the investigation. So
Investigation of what?
I-
Whether or not he had proper permits or something?
let me see what 5 on Your Side has to say. On Your Side has learned that St. Louis police officers executed a search warrant Friday evening at the home of Mark and Patricia McCloskey, the Central West End couple who confronted protesters with their weapon in June. Sources told 5 on Your Side police seized one of the weapons, the rifle, from the couple, and they told police their attorney has the pistol seen in photos. 5 on Your Side is not aware of any charges against the McCloskeys at this time, and the warrant served Friday evening was just for guns. So apparently somewhere...
So it was just a seizure.
Yeah, seizure warrant.
Huh.
Which I'm not...
But if they're not being charged with anything, why would you need to seize anything?
Yeah, that's what I don't know about the story, and this is kind of funky to me too, that you're right, they're not being charged with anything, but yes, the weapon has been seized at this point. So what are your thoughts on this one so far?
I don't know. I mean, it kind of depends. Did they break the law? Did they not break the law? I mean, it doesn't really matter, I guess. I don't really approve of what they did. Had protesters been advancing toward their front door, I would have been like, yeah, they totally had right to do that. But they weren't really doing that. They were just walking past, even though they were on a private street. And I think the way that the stand your ground laws in Missouri work is that you can't do that. So I don't know.
Yeah, this is just really weird to me on all fronts and all aspects, and I can't really follow what's going on with any of this because the rules change almost every time you look down into things. And yeah, now we're seeing a weapons seizure with no criminal charges, so somebody's being denied his rights without due
Take the
process of
guns
law.
first, due process after.
Yeah,
Name that quote.
I'm sorry, that one's new to me.
Donald Trump.
Huh?
How did you not know that one?
I didn't know that one.
Yeah, that was like a really famous anti-gun quote that he said, or it was pro red flag law. Sparta got it. Good job.
Yeah, that's my feeling on red flag law right there. Fuck those red flag laws. We don't need red flag laws. So we'll be watching that, of course, and seeing what goes on with that, because I'm sure that there's much more to the story to come out of here.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a while before we see any resolution there.
You want to do a chat break, or do you want to just go into the school story?
Let's start with the school story. We really need to get through all of this.
All right. So Trump has pushed state and local leaders to reopen schools in the fall. The Associated Press reports President Trump on Tuesday launched an all-out effort pressing state and local officials to reopen schools this fall, arguing that some are keeping schools closed not because of the risks from the coronavirus pandemic, but for political reasons. And we actually talked just a little bit about this before the show as well, because that seems to be something that's coming up in your life as well. So where do you stand on opening the schools in the fall?
It really depends on what school it is. If it's a school in New York City, I say if their cases are still rising and their death rate is still high, then they should keep it closed. But if it's a rural school in Nevada, do they have that same need? Probably not. So I think it should just be localized.
As should most decisions that come out of this. And I don't understand why we
Yes.
have so much pressure coming out of the federal government and so much sway out of the federal government going into the schools. But it appears that several states have signed on. This is an addendum to the story from the Detroit News, because Nessel leads 4 states to sue DeVos on COVID-19 aid rule for private schools. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel is among a group of attorneys general suing Education Secretary Betsy DeVos over a policy requiring public school districts to split coronavirus relief funds with private school students. Nessel is partnering with California Attorney General Javier Becerra to lead a coalition of states pursuing the lawsuit, which was filed in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California. So between Trump's idea for all schools to open back up and Betsy DeVos going along with it and insisting that the funds go forward to fund private schools as well as public schools, we have got a big mess with the coronavirus in schools going on right now. So
Yeah, my kid's supposed to go back to school on the 11th, and we have absolutely no, the 11th of August, obviously not the 11th of this month, because that would have been a couple of days ago. And we still have no direction from the school as to whether or not he will be in class at all, if he will be in class part-time or anything. We have no idea.
yeah, and I mean, nobody seems to know, but like you said, this should all be a local decision. There should not be a federal Department of Education. And
Right.
one of the things I pointed out on Twitter the other day is to some people who I got a little bit of slap back from this one here. I said the easiest way for you to not have to worry about the mean old scary Betsy DeVos anymore would be to lobby your politicians to disband the U.S. Department of Education. Then we don't have to worry about her anymore.
Exactly. Then you can do school exactly the way that you want to. And you can keep all of your money.
Well, not all of your money, but some of it there.
Harvey asked me, how does your child going back to school make you feel as a parent? Do you have your own reservations? Yes, I do. Namely, if there are children that go to his school that are sick or have been exposed to COVID, I know for a fact a 7-year-old is not going to keep a mask on or socially distance. They want to hang out with their friends that they haven't seen for months. So yes, I do have reservations. I'm not sure what we're going to do yet. We're just going to see what recommendations the school is going to make, and then, make a decision after that.
Well, and one of the things that goes along with that too is, for the most part, the restrictions I don't think are in place for the kids, because there's like a 0.000098% fatality rate among children that get COVID-19. It's anecdotal at the point that it is, but some of the teachers are closing in on retirement age or even
Yep.
older at that point too. My chemistry,
Administrators, front desk people, school nurses, substitute teachers, like anyone who works at the school is still going to be exposed as well. And it's not fair to them to force them to expose themselves. They don't get a choice. It's either you go back to school or you lose your job. And if they've been a teacher for their entire career, and the way that the teachers unions work, they can't just go get another job at another school and be making the same amount of money and have the same amount of retirement and all of that. At least in Indiana, you start completely over from the bottom if you move to a new district. The way that that model works is meant to force teachers to stay in the same district for their whole career.
which some of them do. My first
Some of
chemistry
them do.
teacher, my 1st chemistry teacher when I was in high school, my freshman year of high school was his last year of teaching. He retired at 80 years old.
Wow. I had there was a geometry teacher at my high school and a Spanish teacher at my high school that both of my parents had.
Yeah, that was a big thing in high school too. Like a lot of the teachers actually said, "Oh, I knew your parents." They didn't know my parents because my parents didn't grow up there, but a lot of the other people that were in my school were.
Generational Gap says in O-Town, Florida, I'm guessing that's Orlando, my girls are being told 2 days in school, 2 days at home, and the 5th day off each week. When my son was doing schooling at home, we were doing 3 days of schooling a week, Monday and Friday. Monday was an optional day, and they would post activities that they could do, but none of it was mandatory. And we got Fridays off too. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll go back to that.
That was fun. I don't know what happened my senior year of high school. I never went. I had late in and work study. I never went.
Yeah, I bet not.
I was there for like 3 hours a day, if that, if I felt like it. The other side of school of this, of course, is on the collegiate level. Immigration advocates, educators slab new ICE rule restricting foreign college students. It really has no basis. So the basis of this law is the fact that ICE has come down and determined that if your school is going to be online only, then you don't need to be in this country and you need to get the hell out. Did you see anything on this one?
Yeah, we talked about this last week.
Did we?
Yes, we did. I had things to say.
Oh, crap. Oh, this is on-air production. That's right, we did on this. God, what the hell was I thinking? I really need to organize my Discord server then to make sure that I don't cross that one back over again. All right, just kidding, folks. We already know what the co-host has to say about this one here. All right, I have got 2 more articles.
2 thumbs down, in case you missed last week's. 2 thumbs down.
All right, it is time for government overreach of the week, but before you do that, let's why don't you catch us up with the chat here? I do have a video I want to make sure is getting ready to go, and then I've got surprise stupidity for you at the end.
Elephant Man says, "This is why we watch." I'm assuming he's referring to your on-air production. Generational Gap says, "He will forgive you because he knows that you have slept since then." And lots of comments about, Harvey says the kids are not wearing masks in California. Sparta says COVID-19 is just nature pushing back against overpopulation. It will happen more as long as we have a globally connected travel. I mean, yes, that's kind of the nature of it. And Generational Gap says his wife suggested that they check temperatures on kids on the way into school. If it's high, put them in a small separated building until parents can come get them. That's probably the safest thing you can do. Or a hazmat suit. Just give them that. That'll work. That'd be hilarious. Could you imagine having a classroom full of 20 kids in little tiny hazmat suits?
I don't know if that would be terrifying or hilarious.
It could be both.
All right. If
All right,
you,
are we ready to go?
if you're all set, I will play the sounder and we will do the government overreach of the week.
Okay, let's do it.
Get ready. Just when you thought you were free. It's time for the government overreach of the week. So we actually have 3 stories in the government overreach of the week. They were busy this week. And one of them, we
Okay.
actually had a debate over whether or not we talked about it last week. And I don't believe that we did because it was just breaking up on Monday. So, from CNN Business, TikTok is a national security threat, U.S. politicians say. Here's what experts think. The short-form video app TikTok has become quickly a key part of popular culture in the U.S., serving as a platform for viral memes, as well as political satire and activism. Facebook, the dominant force in social media, has tried to copy the app, but so far it has not slowed down its rapid response. Now, I'm not paying for the New York Times, so I didn't open up the article that you brought up in here, but it appears that the government is going so far now as to get ready to ban TikTok. Which, if it's that much of a national security threat, I could say, yes, it's possible. But once again, there's freedom of association involved, and you should be able to choose and assess your own risk factor. What do you have to say on this one?
I'm with you. I mean, do I think it's probably dangerous for national security? Maybe, but you should be able to make your own choices. And I would venture to guess that most people that are using TikTok are not like classified security level. They're just dancing in their kitchen. So I don't really know what harm that does. I don't really know what kind of information Chinese people could glean from that, like Chinese intelligence could glean from that. Yeah, I don't know. But the article, we talked about TikTok last week too. Google and Facebook agreed to stop processing requests for information from the Chinese government on TikTok users that were living in Hong Kong and engaging in political activity. So there's that as well.
Well, I mean, the thing with TikTok is the fact that the Chinese government is coming down, and the Chinese government can come down and basically say, you shall be under our thumb if we tell you. I mean, they don't have freedom of business like we do over here. They can do
No.
free market capitalism, but as soon as the Chinese government says that you'll turn over everything to us and you'll become a state-owned business, they have no choice at that point.
Right.
And TikTok is farming a lot of information from its users. Like I said, I don't know if it's national security threat or it's just people are going out there, but of course Congress is out there saying that this is a problem if China is coming out and harvesting data from people, because China doesn't own as many senators and representatives as Facebook does. Facebook does the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, all social media apps or platforms that are built in the US, they all have backdoors in them. And that's why we've seen a push for people to move to platforms like using Proton Mail and Signal and things like that. But even I think Signal has backdoors built into it for the government, because that's one of the requirements for them to allow you to operate. They won't let you start your business building a platform like that unless you agree that you will build in these backdoors. So if you say no, then they just shut you down. They tie you up in court, they make you pay tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees and what have you, and then they win anyway. So most people don't challenge it. They just say fine, and they build the back door, and then that's it. And then they don't really tell people about that. So there have been other social media things that have been social media platforms and apps and things like that, like Telegram and just different things that are, I want to say they're built in like Switzerland or Sweden or something like that. Those governments don't require you to build a backdoor into the software.
Right. Well, it's the same thing too. Like, we are streaming to DLive, and I will go and put this video up after it's done to BitChute.com. DLive is blockchain, and I don't know where that's centralized, but BitChute is based in the UK. where once again they're not required to have any of these backdoor access points or pretty much anything else that YouTube is required to come out and put out via Google.
Yeah, and I think pretty soon that they're probably going to restrict U.S. users' access to those social media platforms to certain, .uk addresses, so that people can't even sign up for accounts.
Well, BitChute is it's not a .co uk. It is a .com.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, all the basis and everything is coming out of the UK, and there are
Yeah, I
other
said
ones
that
too.
wrong.
That there are other ones out there that go along with that, and we have so many platforms out there that are based in countries that don't have a First Amendment, that are more free speech than anything that we have built on this soil.
Mm-hmm.
And
Agreed.
once again, we're looking at now they're banning TikTok because they're doing the same thing Facebook is, but they're not delivering the information to our government. They're delivering the information to the China's government, which Facebook is too.
Of course.
So I don't know what this does, other than the fact that it's going out to try and mitigate your freedom to choose your own risk level on your own.
Right. Yeah. That's it. Pretty much. All right. What's next? What else has the government done this week that we can be mad about?
The government gave away half of Oklahoma, which has really pissed off Ron Helton over in the chat because it's on his half of Oklahoma. Oklahoma leaders focus on a path forward after SCOTUS tribal jurisdiction ruling. So what happened this past week on Monday is that the Supreme Court ruled the eastern half of Oklahoma as tribal land after a review of a case of a child rapist who was in prison for 1,000 years.
What?
Yeah, his sentence was 1,000 years because he butt raped some little girl, 4 years old. 1,000 years,
God.
but because it happened now on tribal land, he can be released from prison because the
Well,
federal
no,
government doesn't.
I mean, yes, he can be, but that doesn't mean that he won't be tried by a tribunal court, or a tribal court, whichever that way they say that. But 1,000 years is. I mean, I don't want to say it's excessive because I think someone who does that should spend the rest of their life in jail. But at that point, it's like, just sentence them to life without parole. Why do you need to put a number on it? Just say the rest of your life. It's not like anyone's actually going to live 1,000 years and be able to be released from prison.
So, I mean, there are a couple things that go along with this. The first thing that I start to think around is, okay, what else in this country is officially tribal land that wasn't specifically contracted? Because that seems to be the case on this, is after the Trail of Tears, land was reserved out for the Indian Nation.
The Supreme Court is finally holding the federal government liable for treaties that they signed and then did not abide by. That's what this is.
Right, but there's also private property on this land right now. So what happens to the people that are on that private property? Did they lose their land?
I have no idea.
Private property rights
It sounds like a legal nightmare, one that I do not want to be a part of.
Yeah.
I am sorry, Ron. I'm very sorry.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for him to do a text wall of angriness.
Oh, he'll get there. He did it on the other show when I first read this story.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say I don't know that that's considered overreach. I don't know if that's considered government overreach, because to me, it's like they're walking back overreach that they already committed.
Right, but once again, I guess to me, private property rights exceed government mandate no matter how bad the contract is. Because if you paid $100,000 for that plot of land and had a little house on it, what happens to that $100,000?
Right, exactly. You'd have to get it refunded somehow, and they won't do that. There's just too many people on that side of the state. I think it even includes most of Tulsa.
Yeah, it does. Now, at this point, does that affect how voting happens coming out? Probably not. Well, even maybe this year it probably will, because, I mean, does Tulsa or does Oklahoma lose electoral votes?
I wonder if we're going to end up with another state or a micro state that's autonomous. I have no idea what this is going to do. That's for people that are smarter than me to figure out.
Yeah. A lot of lawyers, a lot of property rights are going to be going on here, and
And
every
so
case
much
that's in
money.
there too, every case that happened on that end of the state is going to have to be retried at this point too.
Uh-huh. Yeah, everything. All right, last one. Government overreach.
Oh, I'm out of government overreach.
I thought we had 3.
I thought I did too, but I looked at that and it wasn't. It was something else, but I skipped it because we were up on time. But I do
Alright.
have surprise stupidity,
Okay.
which coming from about the stupidest source of news on the internet too, from Breitbart. Ford Motor Company employees call for end of police car production, which is 40% of their production in that motor company, I might add. The Ford Motor Company's website features the automaker's long relationship with law enforcement that dates back 7 decades and includes its tagline for the vehicle's design. It has designed for men and women in blue, police tested and street proven. But now, the wave of social unrest and virtue signaling following the death of George Floyd while in police custody is taking over the corporate world, including at Ford, where workers are urging leadership to stop the manufacturing of cop cars.
Wow.
I can't get behind this. That is 40% of the Ford Motor Company's new vehicles every year is police cars. It's one of the reasons they are one of the biggest companies in the country right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have had the thumb on police agencies since 1950. Why would you take your own food out of your own mouth?
Somebody has a death wish. I don't know.
And the thing, I mean, this is all happening out of
But they
Michigan
have
plant.
they have every right to run their own business under the ground if they want to.
Well, this is the employees coming back and saying that they don't want the Ford Motor Company is very interested in continuing to make explore police interceptors. It's the employees that don't want to make
Right.
them anymore, but the employees that are striking are out of the Michigan plant. And if I'm not mistaken, the Explorer Interceptor comes out of Toronto, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not even
Okay.
coming up out of the plant that these guys are working at.
That's interesting.
But once again,
I don't know.
the employees are so angry at the police right now, and this has got to have political undertones that they don't want the Ford Motor Company to make their police vehicles anymore. What is your take on this one? I didn't think that you would have heard about this because this is kind of takes an automotive mind, but there's economics behind it too.
Like I said, you have every right to run your business into the ground if you want to, but someone else will always be willing to make those cars.
Mm-hmm.
There will always be another company that will fill that need.
Well, GM and Dodge both have holdings in the market as well. GM lesser known because they've got a Caprice import that they take out of Australia, and then I know the county that I live in runs Dodge Chargers for all their police needs. So yes, there are companies up there that are waiting in the wings to do this, but I mean, you're not going to slow down police if you stop making these cars. You're just
Probably
going to
not.
take money out of your kid's college fund.
Yeah, if you're an employee there, that's exactly what you're going to do, unless you're prepared to find another job. But again, you're entitled to your own stupidity. If that's what you really want to do, then you can.
All
It's
right.
the beauty of freedom. Sometimes it hurts.
All right. That's all that I got for the day. Let's go have a quick look at the live chat here. Where's your text wall? I see your message in there.
Oh, yeah, just scroll up. Ron
See-
he got interrupted by Sparta. They have the same avatar, so I thought it was all Ron.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, they're
Good
organized
point.
by
Oklahoma was admitted to the Union as a state, not as a state and a separate Indian territory. That is true. Congress is the one who opened up the territory for settlement, so it's Congress who must resolve the issue. Also true. What if Tesla gets the contract? I think if Tesla made Cybertruck police cars, that would be pretty cool. I would feel like we lived in Terminator.
That is an interesting take on that. The Cybertruck. The bulletproof Cybertruck that they blasted a bullet into.
Why not? I
And
mean,
blew
it
the
sounds like
window
the
out in.
perfect. It sounds like the perfect police vehicle, right?
It would be. I mean, those little Tauruses that they had, they were quick and they were nimble, definitely. But you really couldn't beat the Crown Victoria.
I love Chargers, so I'll always pick a Dodge Charger.
That Crown Victoria was the cat's ass for police departments because it was still full framed. You could ram the thing into a building and then take it back to the frame straightener and straighten the frame and put it back out on the road for another 100,000 miles.
Exactly.
Now everything's unibody. All right. Well, that's going to be it here. Let's get the outro music up out of here and start talking here. So, thanks again for coming by for the week here. Thanks everybody who came in and chatted with us, kept us honest, kept us on the facts, even if we forgot some of them some of the time as well, and gave us some nice questions here to discuss here. And for those of you who are coming up and catching up with us just now, thanks again. And if you want to catch us back on demand, once the video processes, we will be on YouTube and over on BitChute.com, as I mentioned. Otherwise, you can catch us up on the audio platforms, iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Hey, if you go over on iTunes, leave us that 5-star rating and a good review. That always helps us move up the charts. And lastly, if you want to check out some great creators like the Generational Gap that was in the chat, but other great creators like Steven Ignoramus and the Freckles and Brit Show and Wyatt Birkenhoff and the R-Rated Conservative, come and check us out over at the Freedom Scoop Media Group. We've got all above mentioned great creators. We've got writers getting ready to start submitting articles for you. So we're looking forward to having and hosting, and we're rebuilding a brand new website from the ground up. So come and check us out over there. Lastly, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. Why don't you give us a last word?
Have a great week.
Take care.